This is Leah Via, and welcome to episode 20 of the Eventual Knits podcast. I am known as Miss_LJV on Instagram and as Eventual on Ravelry. Today is Sunday, January 12th, 2020, and it's episode 20, as I said. So I have a lot of things to talk about today. I have been working super hard on one of my projects all weekend and all last week. I really wanted to get it done, so I'm really excited to talk about it with you today. I'm just wearing my Sunday outfit. The sweatshirt I am wearing actually is from, I think it's just called Alternative brand. It's like organic and recycled materials, and it's insanely soft. And I have been really trying to, if I add pieces to my wardrobe, make them sustainable in some way. So typically that means from brands that are doing recycled materials, that are paying their workers a living wage, and are usually small scale, that kind of thing. So it's been really nice. It's a lot more expensive, but it makes me feel better about purchasing something, and a lot of times it's high quality, so I'm really enjoying it. Okay, I think I have a lot of stuff to talk to you about today. Did I say that? Let's start with my finished objects. My first finished object is what I'm wearing. So this is the 54 Cowl by Jen Peck, and it is a scrappy project. So what I did is I actually made two kits of these. So as you saw, probably, maybe, during Vlogmas, I bought a giant fishbowl and I put all of my scraps in there. And so what I did when I was thinking of making the 54 Cowl, I just put a bunch of colors together. What's really nice about the 54 Cowl is it gives you gram amounts and yard estimates, I think, for maybe just grams, for how much yarn you might need for each section. So 54 Cowl basically means there are 54 combinations of ways that you can put the cowl together. And so you can choose, a certain number of the body, you can choose a certain number of the edging and a certain type of bind off. So I decided on two different kits that I created of different color schemes, and I wanted to cast on one right away for January 1st. And this is the one that I had people vote, and this is the colors that people wanted me to start with, and so this is what I ended up knitting. And it was a really quick knit. It's super fun, really squishy, very comfortable. So for my body, I just did every other stripe. For the, it says up to 4 colors. I just used my color A for the 2 every other garter stripes, or every 2 stripes. I thought it looked really nice to transition. And then I did an I-cord to bind off. This is the back. Here, I don't know what happened. I think right away this got caught in my zipper or something. I forgot. I gotta weave that in. It does ask you to sew in for the, so it's knit flat, and then you block it. And then after you block it, you take the 2 edges and then you put them together. And so I just took a needle and thread and I sewed the edge. They lined up pretty well, I think, for me. I think I might have had, I think on the, so I sewed it from inside to outside for some reason. I think because it mattered more to me to have the inside line up better. And so I think I had a slightly off by the end, but it doesn't matter. That's just the back of the cowl. You don't really end up seeing it. And yeah, it's super nice. it's good to throw on. It's very light, but also warm. And the yarns that I used, the white speckled is my Qing Fibres, I think Salt is the colorway, and that was also used in my Goldfish Memories shawl. Just it was a little bit of leftovers. And then the lime is actually like not a colorway. I have no idea what it is. I think I got it from a Lady Di kit. Not even a kit, but she had like a mystery club thing where she, like, the tagline was like, do you trust me? If you trust me, you know, pick either cool or warm and I will send you colors from that palette. And the bag came with a bunch of different goodies from other people too, but it had like loose yarns in varying amounts. Like, they weren't all the same, and I can't remember what all the colors were, but it was like I had like a salmon kind of, a maroon, this lime, and then maybe an orange, and they were all mini skeins, or they were like kind of like smaller skeins of varying, they were not all the same. I remember, like, they weren't the same size and they weren't labeled, and so I have no idea anything about them. I remember I just balled them up and then stuck them in my minis. It was a very interesting setup. So I don't know what yarn it is, but it's a really nice, like, bright happy green that matches really well with the Qing Fibres. And then this tonal black is leftovers from Jackson Yarn Co. King of the North that I used in my Diamond Duality shawl. And I have just a little bit of both the Qing Fibres and the Jackson yarn left, so I succeeded in using up most of those scraps. It was very nice, and they lined up really, really well with how much the pattern said I would use when I feel like I knit pretty loosely, and so I end up using more than is usually expected. So I was really happy. I'm really excited to knit the second one, and I would probably knit more. I'm gonna do a different motif here when I do knit it again. So yeah, this is the 54 Cowl by Jen Peck. It is actually the last thing on my list for the Make 9, and I ended up being my first because I knit it over the course of like a day, maybe even less. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you want just like a quick sort of cowl. I don't like style it, you know, like I think some people have like tried to pull it and like, you know, but kind of, to me, when you do that, I feel like it kind of looks like a bib. So I like it to just kind of be bunchy, kind of like a scarf. And maybe I would make my next one maybe a little shorter, just because I have such a small, so it looks more like a kerchief. Like I have a good few inches back here. But like, yeah, kerchief style. I like that. So yeah. The next thing that I have finished, I just finished. Like, I've been putting off doing my podcast all weekend because I wanted to finish this. It's not like completely finished, it's not blocked, and I'll talk a little bit more about what else isn't finished on it. But I finally finished what was originally a test knit for Knits. This is the Pink Peppercorn Shawl by Julia Parlette-Cariño. This was a test knit that I think I started in like October that I lost steam on. My stitch marker is here, but I think more like I lost steam like here. And not because there's anything wrong with it or because it's boring, it's just like it's like thinking to myself like, oh, I've done 9 repeats and I have 2 more left or something. I can't remember how many repeats you need to do, but I think I was getting to the end of my second skein and onto my third, and I just stopped doing it because it was like the holidays and getting distracted, and so I stopped doing it. But I was like, I really want to get started on my Make 9, but there's like, I can't do that to Julia longer, you know, like she's been very sweet and very understanding, and I think she also just sort of like lost steam herself, kind of, in general. Like, not just like, you know, she's busy with her family and life and stuff, and so she, like, it's a lot of work to be a designer and to like constantly be selling yourself and putting yourself out there. And so I think that she just maybe got a little bit exhausted with doing that so much, but she really, like, you should make this pattern. It is actually super fun and a very, like, it's super clever. I don't know, I really, really liked it. So it starts down here at the bottom with a lace motif setup, and then eventually once you finish the lace motif setup, when it gets to be as wide as it's going to be, this stays the same width for the entire length of the shawl. So once you get, again, it's not blocked yet. Once I block it, the lace will open up better, but it stays, it's just a panel up the side of the shawl. And then you start doing the bobbles, and you are increasing a stitch every other row. And so you do this, these are mini bobbles. I think regular bobbles are like 5 stitches, these are only 3. And then it does have written out instructions. I looked at the written out instructions until they seemed like they were working out, and then I just went to the chart because the chart just makes so much sense. And it's funny to me that I say that, because when I first started knitting, like, charts just really did not make sense to me, and I didn't like, I just felt like, no, it's easier, just tell me what to do. But especially for lace motifs, sorry, I have like wool in my face, that's why I'm itching my face a lot. Like, I mean, visually, this is so easy to understand when you're looking at a chart, because you, and when you start, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and so you start to see when you might be like, wait a minute, that didn't work out, and you just like look and see where you were at last, and it's really easy to take back this section, which I only had to do a couple times, and it was always my fault. Then, after you finish the repeats, then you have a brioche border. And I think it's an altered brioche. So the only other brioche projects that I've ever done, prior was in the round. And then I had a friend ask me a couple questions about brioche like 6 months ago, and I hadn't done brioche in a long time, but I wanted to help answer her questions. So I quickly knit up a little thing back and forth and helped her out, or like reaffirmed her or whatever. And I believe that this is a slightly altered style of a brioche. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think it's a little closer together on the inside than regular brioche, because I dropped a brioche stitch at some point, and I was like, you know what, I should figure out how to fix this. And when I followed the tutorial, I ended up with a bigger gap than I had wanted when I put it together. So the way to fix it is, like, she had you go over the main color stitch, then under, grab the contrast stitch and pull it through. But I believe the way Julia has us do it is you only go under one, and so then it ends up with a closer fabric. I'm gonna try to find it, because I think it still ended up a little bit looser, but overall I fixed it. Yeah, I feel like I've missed, yeah, so I still didn't capture it exactly right. I think this is the one. If it's not, it's a different one I made a mistake on. But you see, yeah, right here where my thumb is. So I think I was supposed to capture this again behind this stuck in it somehow, and it ended up with a little gap. But it's not too, there you go, it's not too bad. You can't really tell in the, well, maybe you can, but when I block it, you probably won't be able to tell as much in the grand scheme. I did end up either dropping a couple more at some point. I was watching Steve play a game, and so I would look up and lose track. And a couple of times I dropped a different stitch and then recaptured it. Yeah, this is a bad one. Here, again. Like, I don't even know what I did there, because I didn't actually drop it. Like, I might have Yeah, see, it's not captured back here. Whoops. So, I don't know. I'm not going to drop all the way back and fix it. Maybe, like, it's not a huge deal when you're going to be wearing it. That's the thing about shawls, is like things that are kind of mistakes, it's like you're not going to notice because it's going to be wrapped up all around you. So, I'm not sweating it too much. I do think the rest of the brioche is like so nice and clever, and once I block it, it's going to look even better. I think I did maybe bind off a little tighter than I should have, but I was worried about it being too loose. And let's see, I know when I'm watching other people do podcasts, I kind of hate when they point out mistakes, because it's like, I feel like they're talking negatively about their project. A lot of times they feel bad, or they feel like, ah, you know, and I'm telling you just to be like, hey, look at these mistakes that aren't that big of a deal. So there was one, and it makes it two, but one row in the Bobbles that I accidentally did right at the end, like getting right towards the end, where I accidentally did the Bobbles a row early, which means that there was, yes, yeah, I bet it's right here, where it's like one extra row in between the sets of Bobbles, and then these are a little bit close, or are one row closer together. But like when I block this out and I'm wearing it, you're gonna not be able to tell at all. And I had considered tinking all the way back. I'd say that probably you're at like 150 stitches by that point, and I just thought it was pointless. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm happy with it. No one's perfect. It's totally fine. So, oh, and binding off was really clever too. She has you bind off in such a way where the stitches end up lining up with the brioche and with the brioche stitches, and I thought that was really, really cool. And the last thing I need to do after I block it is to add pom-poms and tassels. So the final image, or the final pattern, has tassels at each corner. So yeah, okay, like this. So a tassel here, here, and then in the center. And then I think it's down the brioche side, maybe not. Let me get the picture. I have the pattern in Knit Companion. I really love using Knit Companion for stuff. Yeah, so down the brioche side. So she has 3 tassels and a bunch of pom-poms. The shawl used 3 full skeins, basically, of this worsted weight yarn. So this is 218 yards. I did weigh the shawl right before the podcast, and it was basically exactly the amount of 3 skeins of the main color and 28 grams of the second color, 24 grams of the second color. So now I have this full skein, and I just tried out to see what I thought. So I have one pom-pom, or I mean one tassel, and then I was like, well, what about a mix? Because I wasn't sure if I really wanted to open a whole skein of yarn just for 2 tassels. But then it's like, okay, but I can do the pom-poms too, and pom-poms take a lot of yarn, so I'm gonna do that. I think I'm gonna do the tassels in this color, and then alternating pom-poms like she has. And that'll be fun, because I don't have any shawls like that. And I definitely don't have any worsted weight shawls. So the main color yarn, the main color yarn is Less Traveled Yarns in Koi Pond. It's from the Enchantment Collection, 100% superwash merino, 218 yards. It says merinos from Argentina and dyed in Phoenix. So that's that color. And then the second color is Yeti yarns, and it's this very interesting blend. I believe this is called Wine About It, and this is actually a DK, which I forgot about until after I was finished, which again, it's not a big deal because it was brioche. You knit the body of the shawl in on size 5s, and then you knit the brioche on size 4s. Yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna block that tonight and get the pom-poms and the tassels ready. It suggests not to block the extra items with the shawl because it can, like, you know, mess up both the shawl and the items. So I'm gonna block the shawl, and my stitch marker is a 360 controller from Simply Serving, who is having a deal right now where if you buy a stitch marker, she will include, she's like trying to clear out her inventory, so she will include a second one for free. It's like a surprise mystery one. So you should check out Simply Serving. If I think it's just until supplies are gone. So you should check out and see if she's still doing the doing that, because it's like a $16 to $18 value. Here's the back side of the brioche if you wanted to see the back. Yeah. So that is the pink peppercorn shawl. All right, I just went to block my put my shawl in the water. I don't know if I showed this last time. I forgot it afterwards, but I feel like I did, and I feel like I talked about it and said, like, this is not like, it's like a joke. It's not real. It's more like I really liked the purple mug, and this is a local mug maker around here, and I'm pretty sure, I don't remember. And it's like a nice wide mouth, but it's like a joke. It's actually like, okay, so when Steve and I first started dating, his mom had like this really old magnet. Like, it really reminds me of like a Kathy comic, and it says something like, spend money faster than your husband can earn it, or something like, so like, you know, I feel like 90s, maybe like late 80s or something, like that sentiment. And it was like a joke because that's like not how his parents are at all. In fact, his mom is someone who wants things to be like very neat and spare. And so like, I just remember thinking, like, that magnet is not related to this family at all. So it was like kind of a joke. And so I feel like this mug is very much in the sentiment of that, except for I do spend a lot of money on yarn, or I spend money, that's like my hobby, so that's what I spend my money on. And Steve spends money on games, and so it's like we both spend money on our parallel, they're very not that different hobbies. But don't worry, we are responsible overall adults. The next thing I want to show you it's like already a finished object, and I'm sure I've already shown it on the podcast. However, I have changed it a little. So this is my one of my Hunter Hammersen hats that I knit this fall, and I wear it all the time, but I have added a pom-pom to it. So when I was at Steve & B, I was like, you know, I feel like my hat is missing something. I have a really small head, and so I feel like it kind of looks weird with like nothing on it. And so I thought maybe it would look cute with a pom-pom, and it does. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it already, and I haven't had it that long. So I bought the pom-pom, and I really think it pulls out the really like cute little gentle pinks that are in this hat. And this is, I don't even think, it might be faux fur. It doesn't really feel like fur though, but yeah, it's probably faux fur. It's not real for sure. They did have a few real fur there, but I don't remember where I was going with this. Oh, so I bought the pom-pom, and I went home, and the next day I, you know, just took a needle and thread, and I sewed it in. I sewed it in wrong first because I wasn't paying attention to how the pom-pom clips on. So, so the pom-pom, like little thingy, I thought at first that you put, like, so it snaps because they want you to be able to like exchange it out if you wanted like a different color or something at some point. And so you unsnap it, and then I thought that the snap part went inside and then you snapped it together. Like that I didn't know that you had to sew it at first. So I thought you just snapped it in, but it was not working. And so then I like looked up a tutorial and I was like, oh, you're supposed to sew it on. So I sewed it, but then I sewed it with the like the male part or whatever, the part I just showed you, facing up. And then when I went to put it on and I realized, I was like, damn it, it's two male parts. Like that sounds all kinds of wrong, but they you know, they don't these pieces don't fit together. And so I had to clip it all out, and it was harder than you think because I actually did a really good job sewing it in. And it's like I was like very like zen, like, okay, I will be able to get this out. And so then I re-sewed it in, and then it snapped fine, and it's great, and it fits nicely. And yeah, so that is my I think this is correlate. I can't remember if it's correlation or causation. The mitts are one and the hat is the other, so I'll put the correct one down below. But yeah, I really like it. I think that it adds like a really fun flair to my hat. The last finished object that I want to talk about is probably the most exciting. So I did finish my Whether or Not Shawl scarf by Scott Rohr. You guys, I did it. I knit a scarf for a whole year. So, oh, I put just a little duplicate stitch whenever each month started. Like, I know you're not really gonna know, but still. So, this is the first half of the year. This is January, the really cold days here. Then February, which is pretty cold throughout the whole month. In March, it's a little warmer. April, May, June. It's pretty solid. Look at all this orange. July and August. September, October. November and December. I got 12 months of a scarf. This is knit in Holst Garn Coast. It's a light fingering. I sized down my needles. I think the pattern said size 4 and I used size 3s. They were right in that, like, after I blocked it, it did get really, like, you know, it starts out a little crunchy, and the more that you knit with it, sort of, I feel like the softer it gets. So blocking it, I feel like didn't have like a huge difference. I could see why people, like, I'm thinking the Yarniacs, the Yarniacs in the Yarniacs podcast, they live in California, how, you know, they really love this yarn for knitted garments, and I can see in like a warmer climate where this like would be really nice, and I bet in the summer this is also really nice. But there was some, I feel like I'm a relatively consistent knitter in, like, I mean, I feel like my stitches are overall relatively even, and I feel like some people said that unevenness in the fabric would block out, but I don't know if I noticed that so much. Like, trying to find a good example. I mean, everywhere where the transitions were between garter and stockinette, not so great. I feel like, I guess when the fabric is doubled, it's not, like, it kind of evens out, but I mean, like what's going on here? Why is this like this? And I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this yarn. I feel like if I did it again, I wouldn't use that. When I'm wearing the scarf, it sort of curls in on itself, even though I used a garter border. I think it's just because it's so thin. Yeah, so thin. Like, the yarn is so fine, and like this bunches into, I don't know. Like, I like wearing it. It's fine. It's just like I specifically had added extra stitches with the hopes that it would stay wider and not just kind of wrap up on itself. But it does. But it's very soft. I've worn it a ton since I finished it. It is like super soft and comfortable, and I really like the look that's sort of like a stole basically, where it's like a really long scarf and it just like adds an outfit accent. Yeah, so I don't want it to sound like I'm doing a bunch of complaining. It's more like I've been working on this for a whole year, so I've thought about like what I would change and what I wish I knew out before I started. But I do have a few fun facts about Minnesota weather in 2019. The highest temperature in 2019 in Minnesota was 95 degrees for the high. And the lowest temperature for the high was the high was 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius. And the lowest temperature was -13 degrees Fahrenheit or -25 degrees Celsius. There were 176 days that were colder than historical average, 78 days that were right on par with the historical average, plus or minus 2 degrees, and 111 days that were higher than average, which breaks down to 48% days colder than average. It was a cooler year than we'd expect. 21% of our days were where we would think, and 30% of our days were warmer than average. I personally did, I mean, that matches with what I think. I feel like it was a cooler year overall, and I remembered thinking like our really warm days didn't actually get as warm as I would have thought. So it was very interesting. I mean, I think it's that we're landlocked and we get like the jet streams from the Arctic or something like that. And so with everything melting, we're getting all of the sort of like cool air runoff or whatever. So yeah, it was very interesting. And I'm just really proud of myself that I knit 365 days of a year. So this is the Whether or Not scarf. Scott has released the scarf for this year. I will talk more about my plans for 2020 in a little bit. Okay, actually I'll talk about it right now because that's all of my finished objects. If you have any questions about my finished objects, please put them in the comments, send me a message, whatever. Let me know what you think. So for this year, I am actually going to do a temperature blanket. There is a woman I follow on Instagram. I believe we met at Zombie Knit Apocalypse 2019. On Instagram, she goes by Beagle Mom Knitter, and she shared like what looked to be at least a queen size, if not a king size, blanket that was miter square, and it is gorgeous and such an amazing idea. And I thought, I don't want another scarf. I would love to knit a blanket, and what better way than doing a little like 3x3 square at a time. So that's what I'm doing. Excuse me. That's what I'm doing. I have already started, of course. It's, January 12th. And I'm using a combination of Cascade 220, just a few when I couldn't find colors that I liked in Barocco Vintage DK. So it's DK yarn. Barocco Vintage and Cascade 220. And yeah, I am really excited. So for the Whether or Not scarf, a lot of it ended up being about 15 degrees difference. I think Scott's original, well, let me look. I think Scott's, he had two papers and it's not on this one, I think. Yeah, I think his differed by like 17-ish degrees, and I think I had modified them to be maybe more like 14 degrees, and that's too big. And even already while I'm knitting it, I'm like, wow, 10 degrees though is still a big gap, big difference sometimes. But I think 10 degrees difference is much closer to like how it feels. So I think I have 14 colors for this year, because we do have such a range. I mean, we had, like you said, a 95-degree day, and we had a negative 13-degree day last year. So, you know, 108-degree difference is a lot of different yarns. But yeah, so I'm really excited. I think it's going to be amazing. It's not going to be as clear cut, because I'm not doing the mitered squares in rows. I'm doing the mitered squares in sort of a diagonal until I reach like the peak width that the peak hypotenuse basically that I want, and then decreasing it back. So, and I believe, you know, the way that she did it is she did 14 rows across, and so I think you end up actually 364 days, and I think we're actually gonna have 366 days this year, right? It's a leap year. I haven't completely planned it out yet, so we'll figure out what I actually want, if I can fit all the days on or not. So it might be a little bit more of approximation, but I think it's gonna look great. The way the mitered squares are knit is the high for the day is one color, that's the main color, and the low for the day is a different color, and I think that will result in a very interesting blanket. So that is going to be my mitered square blanket. The next whip that I am working on is the Hogwarts A History sweater by BadGirlWolfKnits. I have been working diligently on the body. I talked about last time how, you know, I'm knitting this for a friend, and we both very much disagree with and separate ourselves from J.K. Rowling, and much more aligned with the Harry Potter universe. Personally, I'm still really torn. I don't know. It gives me icky feelings. And what really sucks is I had pre-ordered a book that Telly Bean Knits, Stephanie Lotvin, had contributed to like a year ago for Harry Potter inspired knits. And I just got a notification that pre-order is up, and now they're shipping it, and I should get it within like a couple weeks. And it's like, do I want it? Like, I don't know. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I hate when people ruin things for me. In that, like, it's so hard for me to reconcile, like, people being harmed with something that I love. You know what I mean? It's like, I might as well, like, I would rather support people not being harmed. So, I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still trying to figure it out. But anyway, back to the knit, because I'm knitting this for her. This is where I'm at. I've got about 10.5 inches on the body, so we're gonna get to 13 inches. I think I'm doing all right. Like, I don't think I'm getting too loose in my gauge. You can see, I think it looks way worse I think other people have noticed this in other podcasts, but I am alternating skeins every row or every couple of rows, and you can see the tonal quality of the skeins. When I did a swatch, it did bleed, and so my hope actually is that this does bleed and the colors even out a little more. When I block it, I am gonna just block this first before I do anything up here, but I do have color catchers. But I do think that the color differences are way more stark in the video than in real life, but still, I mean, this is tonal yarn. I believe Sean is aware that is the quality of the yarn. I mean, she bought it, but yeah, we're getting there. And then yeah, the sleeves. I really like the way that the yoke has turned out, especially I just love the snitches. Here I'm a little disappointed in myself with the floats, and I mean the needles were so close together, it was hard for me to tell if I was giving enough room between the floats, but I looked at all the projects, and it seems like everyone else kind of had the same problem too. So I think that because the needles were at their best right here is why this looks so great, and then here is pretty good. But yeah, The yarn is Sun Valley Fibers, the maroon is mulberry, and the gold is Golden Harvest, and the white, I don't know if it's like frost or winter or something. I lost the tags a long time ago. But yeah, so I'm just about to finish on the, I don't know, second, I think I've been alternating them, so the first two, and then I think I have 2 skeins left for the sleeves and for the rest of the body if I run out, which I think I will if I have 10.5 inches and I still need like 2.5 more. So yeah, Sean I think will be in town next week, so she might get to like try it on and we'll see how it's looking. So yeah, that is the Hogwarts A History by BadGirlWolfKnits. The last work in progress that I would like to show you is actually some weaving that I have. Unfortunately, I can't remember what the yarn is from. I can picture it and I know it was from Yarn Over, but I can't remember the name of it. This yarn, I believe, is a Leading Men Fiber Arts. I think. It's a single. I'm sure I have it on my Instagram. This was from before I was actually being great and diligent about tracking my yarns. So, but anyway, what I am weaving on is a scarf. So the yarn I just sort of put around as it came out of the skein for the warp. Here on this edge, this is the left edge when I'm weaving, it took me a little while to figure out like what the tension is, and I feel like I've been doing decently well on it. And on this side, I started out doing really well, and then now I've just sort of like messed it up a bunch, and so it's like, and this is like, this section's worse than all the other sections. It's quite uneven, but I'm hoping that I can adjust that a little bit when I'm finished. I do have a, it's wrapped around like 2 or 3 times. I have a decent amount left, and this is both fingering weight yarns, and I'm just sort of letting it do whatever it kind of wants to do. So it's kind of interesting. Here, it's been like a thick purple, and now it's just finally starting to transition back to the yellow. And then over here, over here, it's starting to become more purple. And so we'll have 2 really thick chunks of purple here. The yarn is very, very soft. I really, really like it. So yeah, that is my weaving. That is my weaving. I have been trying to just like warp up a shuttle or wrap up a shuttle with you know, a length of yarn, and then just weave until I run out, and that way I'm getting just a little bit done here and there, so I can, I mean, again, this has been on my loom since probably last April, and I would like to do more because weaving is really fun, and I like what comes out of it. So I can picture the yarn that the warp is in, but yeah, the weft is, I'm 99% sure is Leading Men Fiber Arts in a single. I just can't remember what the colorway is, but anyway, that is my last current work in progress. Lastly, I want to talk about my current like maker plans. So the first thing I'm so excited about, so I said I could not keep working on like my other Make 9 stuff until I finished with my test knit. Oh, I just thought of something else that I forgot to bring up here. I will grab it in a minute. But anyway, is my Lunar Rising sweater by Tina Say. So Tina Say Knits has this amazingly cute sweater, and I've been trying to find yarn for it for a while, and it's been hard. So last week I was like, I really want to have the yarn. I want to have it so that I can start knitting it. And so I went to a couple different local yarn stores, but I ended up at my local yarn store, Knitting from the Heart, and I did like 3 like full laps around the store trying to find it, and I was getting more and more upset because it's like DK is impossible. Like fingering has so many, like I had a very specific vision in my head about at least the style, if not the color. I really wanted like pinks and purples or something. And finally one of the staff, I mean, it's a really small store, and it's just like, it's a small store jam-packed with yarn, and it's run by like mostly middle-aged and older white ladies, and I feel like they do try really hard to help you find what you need, and they have so improved the store since even like 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. They have really branched out in the yarns that they carry. And so she went around the store with me, and we talked about what I was looking for, and you know, I was like, I do not want like a cascade. I don't want a yarn that is a solid. It's too harsh. The Lunar Rising is a gradient sweater, or like a fade, and I want something like that. And I noticed a lot of the finished objects that had like the appropriate kind of gradient either were almost exactly like Tina's, or had an interesting like middle section that connected to different colors. And so she was like really amenable to trying to help me find what I was looking for. And Knitting from the Heart is more broken up by fiber content than by weight. So like there's a cashmere section, there's an alpaca section, there's a cotton section, there is a separate section that's like just for Malabrigo. Like it's not like consistent necessarily. Like there's a sock yarn section, that kind of thing. It's kind of all over the place. And so DK yarns are all over the store. And so we spent a lot of time in the Malabrigo section, and we found some gorgeous yarn, but it always ended up being worsted or single ply with a non-single. So what I ended up doing was like, I was like, okay, let's try starting with this. And I grabbed this skein of Hikoo spray Simplicity, and it's like tonal but also speckle, and it's like teal. It's like a range between teal and ocean spray. I don't think it's a stripe. Maybe it is. Maybe it is a striping, which would be fine. Like a big stripe, but yeah, that's pretty good. And so I was like, okay, let's start with this because I know that this is at least enough of yarn. The only yarn so far that I had found that I really liked, other than the Malabrigo, was the Dream in Color, the Smooshy, but that is really expensive and not enough yards. Like I would have to buy like 8 or 10 skeins, and that would be so much money. And like I know I have to pay to get like a nice tonal with a gradient, but that is getting a little extreme because of the cashmere content. So we started with this after we decided that the purples weren't going to work, and I didn't want blue because I didn't want to copy Tina's sweater. And so we ended up finding this yarn in the Malabrigo. This is the Arroyo. This is colorway Brujula. And there, if you look on Tina's pattern page for the Lunar Rising, there are a couple sweaters that have like this interesting sort of tonally speckly in the middle, and I really like it. So right now we have the bottom of the sweater, the middle of the sweater, and we're like, okay, well, we need to find a dark color to sort of put this together. So we tried so many different, like, I mean, this has some blues in it. We tried blues, we tried purples, like it just was not working out. So we're like, okay, what? And finally, just like in this little basket with just a couple skeins, we find this color. So now we have a full sweater. And And I believe Tina's sweater goes dark to light, and I think that's what we're gonna do. Draw more attention to like my top half than my bottom half, hopefully. I'm so happy with it. And like, they don't really carry 3 Irish girls. They just happen to have these like last couple little skeins, probably as leftovers from the Peep Shawl shop hop thing, or maybe regular shop hop. But anyway, I got it. There's like a small chance that I won't have enough of the Hikoo and I'll have to buy a whole new skein, but I asked Knotty Ginger, Knotty Ginger on Instagram, because she knit one of these already, and so I was asking her a bunch of questions about it, and she thinks that it'll be enough, and that you don't use that much for the sleeves, and that I could just use some leftovers, or like make the sleeves a little shorter. So we'll see, but I'm so hyped. That's gonna be my literal next cast on, like tomorrow, and I'm so excited, you guys. So that is the Lunar Rising by Tina Say. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Diaphanous Raglan. Right now, Jessie May is doing a knit-along? Yeah, I guess, kind of her patterns for this month. And I really wanted to cast on the Diaphanous Raglan because I don't think it would take that long to knit. But I ordered yarn for it that I don't think will work. So I just got it in the mail. It is a Knit Circus Yarns. It's Opulence. It's 80% superwash, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 440 yards. And it's a gradient, and it's a really pretty gradient. But I've never held a yarn together with mohair. I didn't realize, I think, I think you hold the mohair for the whole thing, and for some reason when I was buying the yarn, I was thinking that you only did mohair on like the sleeves, and like maybe if you want the chest, the V that you're gonna have. And so I was thinking like, oh, well, I'll just get mohair and like get the maroon, and I'll do the sleeves in like a maroon. But I don't think that works for a full gradient, because then it would just really dull these colors out. So I think I just have to rethink what I want to do for that and use this yarn for something else, which I'm not sorry about, but it is really pretty. And I got this exact same yarn in a worsted weight with a hat pattern that I want to knit, and it looks really cute. So I'm excited about that, but just wanted to show you this yarn that I just got. And if you have any suggestions on yarns, not maybe necessarily colors, but like yarn brands for the Diaphanous Raglan, I would love to see them. Yeah, I'd love to see those suggestions, because I'm not sure what I want, and I've never knit with mohair, so that would be awesome. The last thing I want to talk about with making is this season's pom-pom. This is probably my favorite pom-pom make so far. I really liked a lot of the patterns in it. I did like, even though I can't do it, I did like that there is a crochet pattern in here that is really, really nice. And it looks kind of like brioche or ribbing. And that's the Acre sweater. And that's crochet, not knitting. But what I really wanted to talk about is that I so badly want to knit the Saltings. This is on the cover. It's based on old fisherwoman sweaters. They acknowledge that it is much more delicate than the old fisherman sweaters, but it is in that same style. And it also reminds me of the fisherman sweater that was being worn in the office. So I just want to show this again. So it's got little delicate cables, some garter. Again, I believe you're holding mohair, maybe. Let's see. It calls for I didn't see the food recipes. Yeah, it calls for Onyx Fiber Arts sock, Onyx Fiber Arts mohair silk. And I would probably need 5 or 6 skeins. Let's see. 4 or 5 skeins, it looks like. So it does, I mean, the smallest chest circumference is a 37. So that would be probably, that'd be a lot of positive ease if you were really small. And it goes all the way up to a 62. Oh, 2 to 7 inches of positive ease. Since I haven't knit a sweater for myself, I don't know how much positive ease I'd want. I probably feel like I'd want like 4 inches of positive ease always. So, and I'm a 39-ish inch bust, so 44 seems right. So that would be 4 skeins. Four skeins of each, it looks like. So 8 skeins total. Man, that's a lot of yarn. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I really, really, really like this pom-pom. It also features, oh, this pattern is also really nice. There's so many good ones. But yeah, it features Sophia Kai, also known as, I believe, Sophia Tron on Instagram, and talking about her confront and affront. And I have, oh, yeah, I have that, oh my gosh, why can't I do, why can't I do this? I have that pin here. You see that I have a little happy place going on up here and over here. I think I pronounced, or I called it something wrong before, but yeah, the La Serena Tejera. I always want to say Teja, but it's Tejera shop. That, you know, I don't look like it really, but I am Mexican, and I like just really resonate with like this little knitting Frida, and like the knitting Mujer right there, and like the Dia de los Muertos, which has fallen over. But I love all of her stuff, and I just can't get enough of it. It makes me so happy. And then this sheep here is by Woodworks Crando, and she's a Japanese maker, and I bought, it's handmade. This adorable little you. I really wanted the ram too, but these were carried in Little Skein Anne's shop, and I couldn't get the ram, but she does have them. She still makes them, so I'm gonna keep an eye out. But I love this little guy. Yeah. So that's all I have for maker plans. I found actually more works in progress that I kind of forgot about. One of them is like a lace silk cowl that I'm working on, that it's just slow going. A couple other just like random projects that I have been working on for a really long time. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is for Zombie Knit Apocalypse, they're doing like a teams thing, and so they have, I think, Team Unicorn versus Team Dragon, and you just, you know, comment your name and you get added to a team. And I was added to Team Dragon, which has some people that I recognize on it, and it's just like, you know, knitting based on yardage, or making based on yardage, and they have like little bonuses every month. And so this month is like knitting socks or making socks, and you also get bonuses for knitting with yarn from vendors that are going to be at ZK. And so I don't know, that I would join. It's interesting. I feel like kind of vulnerable posting stuff like that, posting my things. So I posted this because I started it on the 1st, and I don't think it uses, I don't think any, like, Jackson Yarn probably won't be there for sure, and I don't know if Lady Di is going to be there, or Qing, so I'll have to look into that. But yeah. All right, I think that is it for all of my knitting and crafting stuff. I do have a test knit that I can't find that I will talk about next time, when and if I find it. Otherwise, life stuff, just a little bit here. I am in week 5 of sleep therapy, and it's working. Like, I mean, I still wake up a few times a night, but I'm awake a lot less. I can fall asleep really quickly. We're starting to increase my amount of time in bed to sort of find where my optimal bedtime is. So the idea is we'll keep increasing my time in bed and I'll keep getting more sleep, because I'm still getting like more than 2 hours less than at minimum that I should, because of the restriction that we've been doing. So it's supposed to go up, 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 and then level out and then decline again, so we can find that sweet spot. And so I'm still feeling very tired a lot of the time. I do have periods during my days where it's hard to stay awake. I'm very sleepy. The biggest challenge really is that I noticed that as work is really stressful for me right now, in the afternoons I feel really drained, and I feel really like I just want to check out from life, and I would love to just take a nap and reset and refresh. And like I shouldn't, like, when you take a nap, you reduce your sleep pressure, because you know, you think that we only sleep for like on average, ideally 8 hours a day, and then we're awake for 16, and so sleep pressure builds really slowly and depletes more rapidly. So I'm not napping because we're not supposed to, but I have had a few days where I felt pretty desperate because I just want to like turn off my brain for a while, please. But other than that, I felt more human, a lot less sick. Like I'm gonna throw up because I'm so tired. So yeah, I encourage you, if you really struggle with sleep, insomnia takes a lot of different forms, and you should really get a referral to an insomnia clinic if you have struggled with sleep. Like, I have struggled with sleep my whole life, and I can't believe that it's only taken, you know, a month and a half to start trying to fix my sleep after, you know, a million years of bad sleep. So, I mean, it's really, really hard, and the way you get results is through dedication, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. What I've struggled with the most, like, so for this week, there's like a list of 21 things, and you're supposed to sort of like, what are the things you need to work on? And it includes things like napping, that's obvious, you know, eating spicy, sugary, fatty meals or snacks before bed, drinking a lot of water before bed, smoking is on there. If you know, drink alcoholic or caffeinated drinks within a certain time, like, it has a lot of those little habits. Like, it's basically saying, like, there's a lot of little things we do that individually aren't that big a deal, but like when you add them up, they really impact sleep. And what I need to work on is that it's so hard for me to get up, especially because, again, with work being stressful, I don't really want to face my day, so I don't want to get out of bed. I want to be a blanket burrito for the rest of my day. And I mean, I've never been the kind of person who likes to wake up in the morning. And you know, I mean, the doctor is very much like, you have to sort of change your attitude about being awake. And some days I kind of feel like I am positive about it. Like, I like having this extra time awake and feeling more productive and stuff, but there are a lot of days where it's like, I don't want to be alive right now. Like, not like, you know, permanently, but in this moment, I would rather be unconscious and asleep. And so that's been really hard for me. And I haven't been very perfect about waking up on time. And apparently, the most important thing in sleep therapy is getting up at the same time every day. I'm really good about going to bed at the same time every day, but not so good at getting up at the same time every day. Especially with Steve coming to bed later, it's really hard for me to wake up in the morning, even though I already get up at 7, and so that does not give me a lot of time to get ready and then get to work by a reasonable time. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, if you struggle with sleep, go to an insomnia clinic, or like if you have sleep apnea, go see a specialist for sleep apnea. Like, Steve recently got a CPAP, and like a few months ago, and it has really helped him a lot. So I think that, you know, you only get the one body and the one life, like, make it good. So yeah, as I said, work is really stressful right now. I don't really want to talk too much about it or anything, but hopefully it'll ease up in a little bit. I did take on another thing where I'm going over like technology and helping getting English language learner students set up, and I think they're like sorted by tiers, like on their English proficiency, and that's really exciting to me because, you know, I tutored online Japanese, Korean, Thai, Filipino students for several years, a few Chinese students as well, for several years, and my profile's still active, but like my hours are super minimal, so I don't really get a lot of students these days. And I mean, I love teaching, so I'm actually really excited about picking that up. And it was initially like, hey, can you do it this week? And then it was like, what do you think about doing this long term? And I think it's like 3 times a year, and it's like, absolutely, I would love to do it, no problem. I am very hype about helping people get set up with their accounts. Like, that is no problem to me. That is something that is fun, unlike this other thing that I'm doing that I hate. So so yeah, I think that will do it for me for this week. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you're new, if you're returning, I love to hear from you. Just, you know, leave a comment, follow me on Instagram, subscribe. I do have a Ravelry group. Again, I don't really know what to do with it, and no one's telling me what to do with it, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know. At the very least, introduce yourself in the thread. I did not think until just this second that I should like call out people, you know, like, hey, welcome, you know, whatever. So maybe I'll do that next time. Otherwise, I really hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will check in hopefully within a week. And yeah, I will talk to you soon. Bye. So I did pin down the lace panels, so it looks, I think, a little bit more uneven than if I was just blocking it by leaving it, but I think that it is, I want the lace panels to be open. Like, I don't want the lace to be closed, so I have pinned down the edges of the paneling. and just gently on each of the corners. So we'll leave it to dry and see what it looks like once I'm finished letting it dry and adding in the pom-poms and the tassels.